Good morning. You're watching the Shield Bearer Faith. I'm Twitch. Thank you for being here. So if you hear some music in the background, we are back in the gym. You know, this seems to be a reliably quiet and lonely place. And a lot of times when we go to these hotels, this is the place I can more likely not have a lot of company, and it's early. It's about 4. So yesterday, actually the last 2 days, I've been training people. So we did 2 Responder 1 classes back to back first day, and then yesterday I did a Responder 1 and 2, and today we will do Responder 3. And we're at a hotel. It's been a great turnout. I think almost every class was either sold out or right at sold out, somewhere in that region. And so it's exciting, you know, we got a lot of people. And yet, I get to do another baptism testimony video. And I want to, like always, preface it by saying it's just me trying to share what is happening to other people. And I think it frequently is speaking to others. I think it's speaking to some of you guys. And even though I've stopped putting most videos on YouTube, if not all videos on YouTube, I'll tell you, it's somewhat tempting to put these testimonials on YouTube, and I may still, because it may still speak to somebody. Somewhat conflicted right now, but like always, no glory to me, I don't matter. In this specific case, I'm just the mouthpiece, right? I'm just the guy that is trying to tell y'all what happened. So make sure you remember who's actually doing any of this. All right. So a couple days ago, we'll back up. I was teaching, and we've started the classes more recently, in recent months, by praying. And, you know, that might offend somebody. We've taught some private classes, and I try to intro it like this, you know, hey, we don't expect anybody or everybody to have the same faith or believe the way we do. However, it helps me to start the class off right. And so I'll pray up front, in front of the class. Of course, if you don't believe the way that I do, maybe you're of a different religion or no religion, I guess, and you can just sit there. It's fine. But that's how we should start off. Really everything, if you think about it. Start everything with prayer. Every question that comes up, pray. Every task that comes up, pray. Every concern or question or direction in life, pray. And so I've started doing that in classes. And it's good, man. We've gotten some interesting feedback from people that it's impacting them heavier, I think. And then towards the end of class, I'll give a series of testimony pieces from call types that I've been to, and then a personal testimony from a family member. And I think what it does, if I do my part right, is it kind of culminates everything that we learned in the class, in Responder 1. And I think it helps people make it personal. I know it does to me. And with that personal connection, in the last several classes, I have started, just because the Spirit told me to do it, I've started connecting the dots even more with the spiritual ramifications. So if you've been watching me very long, I've mentioned that when I was rendering aid as a cop, and now when I'm teaching other people to render aid, that there was something as an undertone that must be realized, where we're delaying death in a worldly sense. We're buying people that much time right now, keeping them alive just a little bit longer if we can. But guys, eventually they'll still die, and so will you and me. Eventually, we're all dying right now, just slowly. Some of these people have an accelerated timeline. And so I want to delay death. I want you guys to do the same. But hopefully that will buy whoever it is that you're rendering aid to. Maybe it's a criminal, like a lot of mine were. They were criminals. Maybe it will delay their death that much so that they have time to give their life to Christ, accept salvation, change everything, so that they never die. That's the hope. Delay death permanently, right? So I've started telling that piece at the end of classes too. And again, I think it's a really good bring it together moment for everybody. Now again, not everybody in my classes has faith. That's okay. At one time, I didn't really either. So hopefully what people at least get is that I really believe and care about the stuff I'm telling them. So on the second responder one class a couple days ago, we had a guy that was a law enforcement officer in class, constable, and I actually don't know what that means up here. We're in Pennsylvania. And at the end of class, apparently he really liked the class, and so he actually came up at the end of class and asked me if he could have everyone's attention if I didn't mind. I said, sure, man, go. And he offered to pray. He said, hey, if y'all don't mind, let's take a second and pray. And I honestly don't quite know why I hadn't thought of doing that before, but I hadn't. So I said, yeah, let's rock on. Now there's risks with that if you think about it, right? Because I don't know this guy prior to that class. What if he comes up there and he starts praying in anybody else's name other than the Messiah's? There's a risk there, but it went well and he prayed. But it did occur to me in that moment, why haven't I done this? And so we do the next day, we do responder one the next day again in the morning, so yesterday. And then in the afternoon, I did responder two. Responder two starts branching into scenario-based training. It's a lot of fun. Everybody loves responder two. We had this guy named Brian who had come to class, and he was going to be taking the responder two as well. Now, in between responder one and two yesterday, I got the opportunity to talk to him some. And he told me that he was life, I think number 35, life saved by Refuge Medical or Training kids, either the kids or the training. And I asked him, I said, what happened to you? And we're up to like 53 or something like that. So, okay. So he told me, he's like, yeah, so it was kind of dumb and embarrassing, honestly. I said, well, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but if you're willing to share, it'd be cool to hear about. And so he did. And the long and short of it was, he got shot. He shot himself by accident. That can happen. It could have ended his life right there. And so we chatted about that for a minute. I was like, hey man, that's awesome. I'm so glad you're okay. And he talked about using a tourniquet. And this is before he came to class. And so we're chatting for a minute. And he seemed so happy to be there, so thankful to be there. I relayed to him a question that I was asked, that I ask you guys sometimes when I meet you, and I ask people in general, whenever the moment feels right. I asked him, hey, where are you at with your relationship with God? If that was your day, time's up. Where are you with that? Because that really matters. We will all die one day. If it's today, you have to ask yourself, where are you with your relationship with God? And therefore, as a consequence, your relationship with his son, Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah. Have you accepted salvation? So I asked that question because that question was asked to me one time. And he had a great response. It was obvious to me that the Lord means a great deal to him. And so as far as actual salvation, giving your life, It sounded like that was covered. And so I was like, cool. And I said, it's interesting when we go on these trips, we're constantly being put in a place to serve in a baptismal role. And he said, that must be just really humbling. I said, big time, hugely humbling. I'm just not the guy for that. I'm not qualified for that. I guess the Father makes you that way, But there's a willingness to it that I definitely have. I'll go get the water with you. But it's not about me. I don't matter. But the effort and the task of baptism really matters. It's vital. And so I felt this kind of nudging. I was like, he didn't respond back when I gave a little story or whatever about baptism and struggles in life. I gave just a personal testimony real quick. Most people, if you talk to them about baptism, if they have had a real baptism, one that they chose for themselves, one that they consciously and willingly, not because someone else told them or made them, not because they were an infant and they don't remember it, but they made the decision to follow the Messiah. And then they also made the decision to be baptized in his name and be cleansed of everything they ever did. Well, usually, if I'm telling you a story and you have something similar, you'll follow it up in normal, sequential conversation with your own testimony. He didn't do that. And that's okay, but I noticed it. And so then I go and we're going to have lunch. He and I end the conversation on a great note. And as I'm having lunch, I'm sitting there with Phelps and we're chatting, just kind of chilling for a minute before the next class starts. It's been busy. I said, something that just dawned on me is we might be baptizing somebody during training. He kind of nods his head. He said, yeah, I thought about that. And I was steadily thinking about Brian. I was like, he might be the next one. But I kind of let it go. I had stuff to do. I kept it in the back of my mind. And we go through the day. We finish out, we get to the end of training. And we're going to debrief. And this was one of the coolest moments of my day. We teach everybody generally the same things, right? Every class is a little bit different. Responder 3 has more variance than Responder 1 and 2 do. Because we base it heavily on location, people types in the class, abilities, things like that. But overall, we do generally the same things. We see the same things. We see the same reactions. That's why when I tell my students, you will do this, you'll stop breathing, you're gonna not think right, you're gonna stage the tourniquet wrong, you do all this stuff. I know because I see it all the time. I know, or I've done it. And so we had a first yesterday. A couple firsts, actually. One of the guys that took the scenario at the end of the day yesterday, he got to a point in the scenario that I was notified about at the end. We're debriefing and Phelps kind of pats me on the back. He goes, Twitch, we've had a first. I said, oh, Lord. I said, what happened? He says, oh, it's a good first. I said, cool, tell me about it. He said, we had a guy in this scenario a minute ago that stopped and prayed with one of our role players in the scenario. I said, really? I said, who was it? It's this guy named Noah. I said, great job, Noah. And it was so humbling. And Phelps said, I was gonna debrief after he finished praying with a role player. And he's like, it was so authentic. That's the thing he reverted to. The role player is, doing whatever he's doing. He's amped up to that point. But then when Noah says, sir, can I pray with you? Puts his hand on his shoulder and starts praying in the scenario. That's a first. Nobody's done that before. And so he's sitting in class and he's very humble about it. I said, that's awesome. And Phelps said it was hard for him to actually debrief because it caught him off guard. It was unusual. We're not used to that. I'm used to people praying, but that wasn't scripted. That wasn't normal when somebody does the scenario. So I said, you know what? That's awesome. And we finished the debrief at the end of the day. And I said, guys, we're going to change it up a little bit. And I'm sitting down. We're all, my cadre is all sitting down. So are the students. I said, we're going to change it up a little bit. You're welcome to leave if you want. Class is over. Thank y'all so much for being here. But if it's all right, we're going to end in prayer. There's risks to it. If someone else, someone I don't know, someone I haven't seen do works and I haven't heard testimonies from, there are risks to just letting anybody else pray. But why not me? Why not finish the day right? So I did. I prayed. And in that prayer, I got toward the end, and I felt it. I was like, you need to mention baptism again. Somebody in here needs it. So in the prayer, go through it. Thank the Father for letting us be there, for keeping us safe, for letting us train. I'm asking that we never have to use these skills, because terrible things are happening if we do. And then I asked, Father, if anybody is feeling called to go get in the water and make a public declaration of faith to you, I ask that you please take away any peer pressure they might feel or any other thoughts, and let them step out in faith and be baptized. And so then I ended the prayer. Not knowing what I know, I always ask more than once. So I ended the prayer, looked up in my class. It was like 19 people. Does anybody want to be baptized? I looked around, nobody said anything. I said, does anybody want to be baptized? And Brian, sitting up here to my left at the time, he says, is there any rule on how many times you can be baptized? I said, nope. He said, then I'd like to be. Fantastic, man. And so I said, you go and take your stuff off. You know, I asked him, I was like, you staying at the hotel? He's like, yeah. I said, cool. Why don't you go change, get in whatever you want, take stuff out of your pockets. I'll meet you back in this room in just a minute. And I made the announcement to the class. I said, if anybody wants to stay and be witness to this, feel free to stay. And I'll be right back. And Phelps is going to do the same thing. He goes off and we're going to change clothes and get ready. I asked Brian, I said, have you ever been baptized before? He said, when I was a baby, and I don't remember it. That's pretty common, guys. I was baptized at 5 and I do remember it, but I didn't decide it for me. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what the consequences were or what the ramifications were or what the significance was. But man, if you've been baptized as a baby, you didn't even decide. You don't remember. You're running off of someone else telling you it even happened. You can't force salvation on someone else. It's also not inherited. It's not. There are generational curses, but salvation has to be claimed by everyone. I can't take salvation for my kids. Hopefully my salvation will affect me to such an extent that it affects them and takes them in the right direction, raises them in the way they should go. So if you're among the many of us that are like, well, I was baptized as a kid, does it count? If you're wondering, the answer is no. Simple answer. It's okay, but that is the answer. Just like, have you given your life to Christ? Have you been able to identify a moment in your life where you said, I'm yours. I'm done being me. I want to be yours. Whatever I am, send me, do with me what you want. If you can't identify a moment, guys, then there wasn't one. And you're running off of what you think was inherited faith. And it doesn't work that way. There has to be a decision. And so, we meet back in the room. And interestingly enough, more than half of those 19 people, if I remember the numbers right, were still there. I brought my wife and kids down too. They were going to be going to bed. My kids were. I told my wife, I said, hey, we got to go do a baptism. You guys want to join? This is where it really struck me here. While I was up getting my family and changing clothes in my hotel room, getting ready for that, I'm told that my son, who's 3.5, has been baptizing his toys during bath time. I hadn't heard about that yet. So I said, really? And my wife and my daughter told me, yeah, did you know that he's baptizing his toys? I said, what's he say? Does he say anything during it? Apparently he's taking his toys in the bathtub, like, Army men and Paw Patrol figurines and stuff, and he's going, love God, and he dunks them. That's how simple. Love God, splash. Love God, splash. Oh, man, it is that simple, isn't it? I was so proud. And so I went over and kneeled down to him. I said, buddy, are you baptizing your toys? And he got real big-eyed and he goes, I said, are you doing it like Daddy? He said, I said, are you like Daddy? And he said, yeah. I want him to be so much better than me. But I was very proud. Again, you can't inherit salvation. You can learn a whole lot. He sees everything. And if that's something he's picking up on, man, there's so many worse things than that, right? How about that? So we go downstairs. We go out to the pool area. And as we're unlocking the door to go to the pool, I don't even know if anybody's out there yet. I hadn't checked. But I told Brian, I said, no matter who's out here, no matter what else is going on, remember that none of them matter. He said, I know. I'm not worried about them. I said, good. So we go outside, and sure enough, there's some family out there. There's, playing in the pool, and there's a guy on like a lounge chair. None of them matter. All of that needs to disappear. And so we kind of get the crowd of us up on the concrete. I take my shoes off. And by the way, we do all our standard stuff before this. I asked everybody, same thing. Why do you want to be baptized? What's it mean to you? We prayed. We did all of that. And we go out. We hop in the water, me and Phelps do. We get Brian in there. Hey, man, you love the Father, right? You love God, right? You love his Son, right? Yeshua, Jesus, whatever you want to call him. And you're dead without him, right? Eventually, you'll die. And some people stay dead. And he said, yes. I said, do we baptize you in the name of the Father, his Son, Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit? Splash. And then we hugged like normal. And we got back out of the water. I asked before I even left the water, I said, is there anybody else? Is there anybody else? I wonder if Noah will happen today. Maybe not. He might not need it. He might already been past that because he immediately went to the idea of, let me pray with you, sir, in a scenario. If you'll do it in training, there's a much better chance that you're going to do it in real life. Powerful stuff. And then I got back to my room. One of you guys here on Patreon had sent me a message a couple days ago now. I just got to it though. Literally talking about baptism in relation to being baptized as a baby, essentially, did it count? Because you want to baptize your wife. If you're wondering about it, you don't have to have me, guys. I will happily do whatever I can do to help. And if you want me to help with that by getting in the water with you, then I will. We'll figure that out. But yeah, if you're wondering, does it count? Man, why not err on the side of caution and just do it? But you first, it's vital, you first have to make sure, did you give your life to the Lord and accept salvation? Because if you hadn't, then baptism actually isn't your first step. Giving your life is first. Baptism is a step of obedience. I compare it to marriage. Marriage, going to a wedding, that is a public expression of that union, right? It's not hidden, it's public. It's also not an advertisement, really. It's designed to be this public declaration. But they decided to get married before that day, right? Makes sense? Same thing with salvation. You decided, you made that decision to give your life before baptism. Baptism is just the next step. And it's powerful. And it's also commanded. Yeah, Messiah told us, go forth, be baptized. My layman's version. So where you at with it, guys? You know, just like the last one, if you feel led to share this video with somebody, you can do that. Where are you at with it? Give it some good thought. And then if all of this has already happened for you, are we going forth making disciples? Are you talking about the Lord? Are you praying with people when they're in their worst moments? Are you praying with people when they're in everyday moments? Do you begin your classes and end your classes, begin your days, end your days with prayer? Because if I'm being honest and fair, I don't always. But I want to do better with that. So Father, I ask that you please guide anybody in the sound of this voice. Talk to them however you see fit. Forgive them of their sins and help them to come to know you in a deeper and more meaningful manner. Please do the same for me. And use all of us in whatever way you see fit. Thank you so much for every second we get to breathe. And send us where you want us to go. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. I'll see you later.